Today, hello again and welcome to this special edition of Spotlight we're calling the GM's Corner, a series of regular conversations with Lake Monticello's General Manager, Steve Hurwitz. And it's nice to be back with Steve once again. Steve, you got a plate full of issues to get to. I know we started a couple of weeks ago with really the full details on the dock replacement at Beach 4. I thought we might start with any update on how that has gone since then.
Ron, we have good news. We're waiting for the final word, but the contractor expects to have the docks completely assembled in the plant in North Carolina the end of this week or very early next week. And then what they've told us is they will immediately give us a delivery date that should be soon thereafter. They don't want to hold on to the dock, the assembled dock, its components in their plant very long. So we're a little bit short of establishing a date, but it should be very soon, and we should have word about it very soon, and we will publicize that. There have been a number of people displaced due to the loss of the dock at Beach 4, and this will provide, we've been able to locate everybody, but it took a lot of shuffling and cooperation. So we're looking forward to everybody going back to where they want to be.
All right, well that'll be good news, and of course this time of year that sort of leads into necessity for safe boating procedures on the lake for those who are operating, no matter where they're operating from.
Yes, indeed, Ron. And so I claim extreme expertise in this area. I'm the owner of a big flotilla, 2 kayaks at the present time, which I've operated twice on the lake in the past week since I got the kayaks. But relative to that, the lake is beautiful, and the people that use it enjoy it so much. But there are potential hazards, especially with the mixture of power boats and unpowered boats. So in general exhortation for people to be sure they understand the rules and operate according to it. We have had 2 cases, one each of the past weekends, where somebody was operating in direct contravention of the rules, and it was indeed unsafe. And in both cases it was detected and corrected. But of course we'd like that not to happen in the first place. Then in addition, with kayaks, where I claim my expertise, 2 trips on the lake so far, that the mixture can be dangerous. And currently we have no formal requirement for people in those unpowered craft to get licensed. So what we'd like to do at this point informally is just ask everybody who's on the water but doesn't need a license because they're not in a powered craft to go by the marina and get the little handout that has the boating rules and review it on their own. They'll be safer, and I think in the long run enjoy it better. And we think that would be a good thing to do on, as I said, an informal basis right now.
Isn't it rather incumbent on powerboat owners to be aware of kayaks, for instance, and sort of power down? You get toward no wake speed. Sometimes. So there is some interaction. It depends where you are. Yeah. So if you're in the powerboat, of course, you have a great deal of control over the situation. But it's not necessary for someone in a powerboat who's following the counterclockwise pattern and obeying the speed limit and enjoying themselves and maybe pulling a skier or a bunch of kids in a tube of a raft of some kind. They don't have to slow down, and they do create wake, but it's important for the kayakers to know where that lane is and be very alert when they're in it or crossing it, and also to be aware of the wake that will come up whenever a bigger, more powerful boat comes by. So it's a two-way street. Yeah, like safe driving. Be aware of the traffic around you, to the side of you and behind you, as well as in front of you. Same idea, just a little more complicated. Okay. Well, a lot more complicated. All right. Well, speaking of, I guess it's not complications, it's maybe a new pattern. Big thing recently is the installation of the 3-way stop at Turkey Sag and Jefferson Drive. Very recent. How's it, with any experience, how's it been working out so far? We think it's been working very well. That intersection has been not necessarily the scene of many crashes. We're grateful for that. But there's been reported, including I've personally experienced, as well as many other people. Close interactions. The nature of that intersection was one where if everybody's doing exactly what they should do and is very much aware of what's going on, it could be relatively safe, but that's relative. So because people can be going left, straight ahead, or what have you, from actually all three directions. And based on the police report of the recent history, where there have been a lot of speeding along those roadways as they approach the intersection from any direction. There's quite a history of speeding. The police say if they're there for an hour, and if they were of a mind to, and they were sticking strictly to the rules, it would be 7 or 8 summonses for speeding, which is bad for everybody. We don't want to do summonses. So it controls the entering and exiting of that intersection, as well as having a positive effect on speed on the 3 approaches to it. So we're very pleased with it. We have had one report of someone just going right through the stop sign, and we think that's a matter of familiarity. We'd like to think that wasn't intentional.
Well, that's, yes, an alert resident has pointed out to me just such an incident. As a matter of fact, with there wasn't even a slowing down. This was a car headed eastbound on Jefferson, was going to make that right down on Turkey Sag, oblivious to the stop sign or anything else, and just breezed right through, and which of course could have been extremely dangerous. Pointed out there doesn't seem to be pavement markings as far as paint indicating a stop area. There's just the stop sign.
We're taking a look. We got a comment, in fact, on email yesterday about that very same thing, including when you're coming down Turkey Sag, downhill towards the intersection, and you can be going one way or the other. Ideally, you'd like to have curb, concrete, to divide it. That's a little impractical, but you can do. There's some things we can do in that regard, as well as indicating more clearly exactly where to stop. So we just started looking into that. That shouldn't be too hard to do to help improve that. And then again, we'd like to believe that anyone who busts right through there is just from a lack of awareness, and that they are maybe never again going to do that. I will say this, if someone has busted through and the other cars are stopped, there's quite an increase in safety due to the fact that it is a 3-way stop now. Because the reports we had previously were of people busting through and other vehicles not necessarily as observant of the intersection and not necessarily fully stopped.
Right. Somewhat similar vein, going on down Turkey Sag, we noticed that the centerline striping has really not been replaced, I think, since the repaving, and at night that's kind of virtually invisible on Turkey Sag, and that's we're going down Jefferson Drive. It's very prominent, of course, but coming up, particularly at night, you really can't see any.
You know, I hadn't thought of that, and I don't think we have that. I don't know that we have that in the accelerated plan to do rather than in line with normal paving and restriping. So I'll have to check on that, but I appreciate that comment, because
take a look at
the
that.
Lines help. You know, the younger drivers have trouble at night seeing those lines.
That's right. Yes,
That's what I hear.
Don't we know? All right. Speaking of things and information that is available, you mentioned a recent development regarding something that I think most people don't think of, these voluminous, this packet of information you get when you buy a house here, and that is pertinent to all of the covenants applying to your individual section. There's Section 9, Section 2, and I don't know how many of us actually read that. But we have to sign and that we have acknowledged and read it and all that.
It's very important. In Virginia, similar to many states, a buyer who's got a sales contract and is going through the steps, when they get those documents, they have 3 days to decline to buy without giving a reason. They can just say, I've got the documents and I don't want to do the sale, I don't want to buy anymore. So it's extremely serious from that standpoint. That rarely happens. What normally happens is people are busy and they don't take the time to read documents that describe very clearly the benefits and then other aspects of being in an HOA, this particular HOA. So as you pointed out, we have 12 sections, and each of them have their own statements of subdivision. And there are specifications in there, including different setbacks. So it's really incumbent on someone to do that, particularly if they're buying a lot. But even if it's an existing home, and someone maybe decides to add a garage on the side of the house, if that comes anywhere close to that setback, they've got to know about that. In addition, there are many other aspects of living in an HOA, this one in particular, about the rules, the procedures, in case there's a violation, what their rights and responsibilities are. It also explains about the board, their authority, and many other factors that have to do with living in an HOA, specifically this one. It's an awful lot for people to do, to read all hundreds of pages, but there's another aspect to this. Heretofore, we've been providing paper copies.
Yes.
And the state of the art actually is digital. All the real estate agents are very used to assisting their buyers and their sellers in providing and then getting the documents quickly and efficiently. And again, the state of the art is digital. The staff is studying and getting ready to convert from only paper to digital copies. Primarily, paper would still be available for those that would like it. But the paper copies have to be produced, then delivered, often by mail. So there's some delays built in at a critical stage during the buying and selling process. So we're very eager to get into this. And again, we're looking at it, looking at ways to do it. And we think it's very achievable and better for everybody.
All right. Well, that'll be very helpful, I would think. I would hope, as does everyone. Another quick update: how's the recycling been going? We talked about last week. There were some grumbles. There's some things about toters being left out, et cetera, et cetera. Anything, you mentioned something about, well, we're not nitpicking on this. So what do you have in mind here?
Of course, that's self-congratulatory. We think we're not nitpicking. Recycling is going very well. The contractor is performing excellently. We rarely get any input or comments or complaints about the contractor himself. Okay. And then as far as the residents, it looks like many people, the vast majority, are taking their recycling toters and putting them out on the right day, which is Friday, putting them in the right place. And then the same thing with their trash. There is something that we're getting into, and this is where we're not nitpicking. We've asked people with informal notes, please be aware of where your toters go and when they go out, both trash and recycling. We're not really interested if somebody puts it out an hour early or takes it an extra hour to get it back in. We're mostly focusing on those homes, which are in a minority, but there's quite a number, where for whatever reasons the residents leave the cans out either near the street or just barely up the driveway or just barely off the driveway in plain sight. And the requirement in general, I won't be quoting it exactly, is put it out of sight, put the cans out of sight to the extent possible, considering your lot. There are a number of homes where they just sit in front of the garage instead of going around the corner of the house. This was the #1 complaint of residents about those. So we're going to help people by reminding them and being as informal as possible. We're not interested in, getting after people formally. That is a last resort and to be avoided. So we're going to keep doing this and reminding people.
All right. Okay. And another reminder you seem to have is to people to get barcodes. Now, don't people do that just automatically?
Well, the barcodes are an interesting subject. We have, yes, most people do it automatically. They look forward to it. They want the barcodes to ease them in access to the community. But we have a significant number of residents, owners, and tenants who choose not to get barcodes. There may be various reasons. They're very inexpensive, $10, and they're good for a year. The reason the barcodes are useful is there are times when the majority of the people who need assistance at the gates, and they're causing lines at Turkey Sag and the main gate, both, are residents who have to come into the left lane with an assisted entry or a Turkey Sag call in. So it creates a bit of a logjam. I've been in the entry control building, at Ashlawn, and sometimes the phone rings 10 times before they can get to it. They're so busy.
Yeah.
So the more people that would get the barcodes and then use the barcode lane, the less people there'd be in the lane that requires assistance, and the shorter those lines would be. So we really encourage people to do that. It's very inexpensive. And we're going to figure out a way to make it as convenient as possible. We're actually working on the process of getting the barcodes to people. We don't want there to be unnecessary barriers or avoidable steps that they have to go through. So we're evaluating that to make it as easy and fast as possible.
Yeah. Well, I would presume, of course, if you, especially if you have to come in Main Gate or Turkey Sag, you can't be living in one of the far-flung sections because it would take you a while to get to back home. But for your own convenience, obviously,
Yes.
in using the gate closest to you.
Yes.
So-
And again, we know there are quite a number of people who, residents who don't have barcodes. So
Yeah.
we're looking for a decrease in that number.
Okay.
And more convenient access for everybody.
All right. You have a piece of helpful information regarding folks who may have an issue with Aqua Virginia.
Yes. I recently met with our state delegate, Rob Bell, whose office is in Charlottesville. And we talked about Aqua. Certainly that's a point, an interesting point. Everybody has, almost everybody gets a bill and is interested in the amount that we pay and other factors. Of course, we recently had the first reduction, and in fact, homeowners should have seen a rebate in the last Aqua bill. But on top of that, Delegate Bell asked me to remind everybody that he's got a very active constituent services department, and that he's very glad for people, if they have specific problems with Aqua, to assist with that. You know, the other side, the business side of it, isn't, and the State Corporation Commission, which makes these decisions, is a little bit out of legislature's lanes by law. But he said, you know, they're glad to handle specific problems that we can sometimes help with, but he's got a much higher vantage point in order to deal with those points, and he's very glad to offer that service.
Yeah, and he and his staff are a local Charlottesville office, of course. They're both in the phone book and online with Delegate Rob Bell, and that has the particulars of the address and all that sort of thing.
But very easy to reach.
Yeah, all right. You had a couple of personnel issues as we, items basically, as we get to this certain time in summer, midpoint. Land and water?
Land and water both. Well, we're sad. Sad to see. We've had a lot of youngsters working for us this summer, and as school gets ready to start, both at the college level and high school, they go back to what they're doing. So we've had a great summer at the pool. The lifeguards have done a great job, and they're virtually all students at one level or another. They've done a great job and very responsible. The leader is a student and done just a great job herself in working that. And then we've had summer hires, if you will, in maintenance. They've gotten out there and worked with the older guys, sometimes bigger guys. They've done a lot of very heavy, difficult work. They've done some crack sealing all summer. That's hot work. They're getting out there with hot material on the hot asphalt. They've done miles and miles of crack sealing, so we're very proud of their participation. Anything they might have learned along the way is probably going to be helpful to them, and we're just, I would say, sad to see them go. But you know, they're going on going on with their futures, and we hope an awful lot of them are back next summer.
Oh, that's great. That's nice. Good for the community. Good for them.
Yes.
Well, that's quite a basket full of issues, and we appreciate you bringing us up to date on them. And we'll look forward to checking in with you again in the near future.
Thanks, Ron. I enjoyed it as always.
You've been listening and watching to Lake Monticello's General Manager Steve Hurwitz on this issue of Spotlight we're calling the GM's Corner. We hope you'll come back and watch the full range of programming, other spotlights, and the full range of programming put together by the broadcast group on good old Channel 977 or up on YouTube. So until next time, for the broadcast group, thanks for watching. I'm Ron Krause. Take care of yourselves. So long for now.